Hi, welcome back. You may have heard recently about Gary McKinnon, the British man who's been faced with extradition for trial in the United States, accused of hacking into the Pentagon's computers. Well, last week there was a glimmer of hope for Gary. The High Court has given him the go-ahead to seek a judicial review of his extradition to America, where he could face up to 70 years in jail. Gary, recently diagnosed with Asperger's syndrome, has always maintained he meant no harm and that he was simply trying to find evidence of UFOs. Not surprisingly, his mother Janis isn't sleeping too well at nights, but she's very relieved, at least in the interim, I think, and she's here now. Are you relieved?
Yeah, I'm incredibly relieved because there was every single court case had gone against us, and as you know, there isn't an actual court case. You can't defend any of the allegations. You can only really appeal against the extradition on human rights. I mean, when Gary was arrested in 2002, the high-tech crime unit said, we've been monitoring your computers for several months, and as you've caused no deliberate damage, you're looking at 6 months community service. But Gary admitted computer intrusion without a lawyer being present because he is naive, always has been. So to go from 6 months to 60 years is insanity.
What did he actually do? I mean, he went into these sites and he left sort of teasing messages, didn't he?
Well, they had no passwords, they had no firewalls. Yeah. I mean, can you hack onto a bowling green? I don't know. But to have no passwords and no firewalls for years on end, even at the height of security after 9/11, seems insane. Why didn't they? And also, if Gary hadn't got in, who would have? I mean, would they rather some dreadful terrorists had got in? Someone would have.
Just to explain, I mean, Gary is obsessive. He always has been obsessive. Indeed, he's recently been diagnosed with Asperger's, and we'll hear Professor Simon baron-cohen in a minute about that. But he's always been the kind of kid who had obsessions. You said he taught himself to play the piano when he was... You suddenly came home one day when he was 7 and he was playing...
Moonlight Sonata.
Yeah, well, at first he was sort of banging on the piano, and at one point we thought someone else had actually walked in, and he did. He taught himself to play Moonlight Sonata. He could talk in sentences when he was 10 months and read when he was 3. But this apparently is Asperger's. They actually come on quite quickly, quite fast. But the obsessions are the problem. It's when passions become obsessions and can cause them all sorts of problems.
And this UFO, searching for evidence of UFOs, just took him over completely.
Totally. He had heard about a thing called the Disclosure Project, where top military people in America had actually come out and said, no, there is UFOs, and pilots have seen them, generals have seen them. They believed alien life existed, and because of that, he felt that this was suppressed, and he also wanted to find out about suppressed free energy and anti-gravity. Sounds, you know, but this is what he was actually looking for.
But with Asperger's, and he has been clinically diagnosed with it, with Asperger's, these things become all-consuming to people. They have to get the detail. They need to get the facts, the detail, the lists, and all the rest of it.
Well, totally.
Well, let's have a look at your expert witness. This is Professor Cohen, speaking very cogently, actually, at the press conference. Sorry? Baron-cohen, very cogently at the press conference about your son's state of mind.
Yeah, he's really good.
And he is, we know him actually, we've interviewed him, he's a very, very clever man, and he's the Professor of Developmental Psychopathology, specialising in autism. Right, OK.
Someone with Asperger's syndrome will find it very difficult to tolerate a prison environment. If, as I believe, this crime was committed through naivety, and through just an obsession, in this case, with computers and trying to find information, but without any attempt to deceive, without any attempt to hide what he was doing. You know, we should be thinking about this as the activity of somebody with a disability, rather than a criminal activity. Of
course, the big fear is what you're really frightened of, and he's frightened of as well, your son, is that he might kill himself. He might do himself harm if he does end up going over there and being banged up in a high-security prison and deprived of all the things which, with the syndrome, he needs to basically keep happy.
Well, he does. Gary's he doesn't leave the UK, even as an adult. He doesn't, you know, go on holiday or anything. He's a very sort of homebody, which is probably why he travels in cyberspace, or did do. But the fear of going, because you hear about those prisons, they use stun guns, there's male rape, they're really frightening places. And Gary's gentle, vegetarian, pacifist. He'd never survive in a place like that.
I suppose one of the stronger points against your son, and people who do think he should be extradited, would want me to quote this. One of the messages he left on one of these Pentagon sites, he said, I am solo, that was the name he gave himself. I will continue to disrupt at the highest levels. And that does, of course, That is a threat, isn't it? I mean, what would you say to that?
At the time, Gary believed in the conspiracy theory that 9/11 was an inside job.
Oh, did he?
And he also said he thought it was no accident that there was a stand-down after 9/11. He was annoyed about this. He left lots of notes saying your security is awful. Awful wasn't the word, but, you know. And he couldn't understand why. He didn't hide his email address, he didn't hide who he was, and he didn't understand why, at this point in time, the security was still awful. No passwords, no firewalls.
So like a lot of people, and goodness knows we've heard from a lot of them, he did believe that September the 11th was a conspiracy.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah.
And
he foolishly put that message...
Completely foolishly.
On the very place that was actually bombed.
I mean, to you know, do any of it was completely foolish and silly, you know, and he regrets it bitterly. But no one has ever been extradited for computer crime, either before or after 9/11, and there has been others accused of also hacking into American Port Houston. So why? Because Gary's the only one that admits to computer misuse. He's the one they want.
What do you... I mean, if the worst were to come to the worst, what do you think about the presence of a new figure in the White House? What do you were you given a bit of heart by the fact that Obama's there, a man who has publicly pledged to restore America's reputation for decency?
Incredibly.
Yeah.
I've got such hope. I really have hope because he's in power now, and I think he's also appointed somebody who's going to uncover all the truth about UFOs, apparently. But obviously his head, you know, he looks in all directions, and also we've got a new director of public prosecutions, and he's also he's written here in the UK. He's written 6 books on human rights. His wife's a solicitor who works with disadvantaged children, and his parents rescue donkeys, and he sounds like a good man.
So the weather may be changing.
I feel there is a turn. I feel that things have actually changed.
We don't go anywhere without hope in our hearts, do we?
Yeah,
You know?
absolutely.
Yeah.
I wish you all the best.
You must be delighted about Obama as well.
Yes, absolutely, because he's for change, and he will make a difference, and he's speaking from his heart. He's not one of those just to say, I'm the president, and not live by his word. He's living up to his word as well.
I love the fact that on day one he had the chiefs of staff in and said, sort Iraq, please, and then he signed the paper the next day to close Guantanamo. He didn't just talk the talk, he walked the walk.
He really is, and he's working very rapidly as well.
And I think it's a wonderful example to politicians here. They talk the legs off a donkey and we never get anywhere.
Never do anything.
And here's a geezer who's going and said, right, it can be done. There we are, I just did it.
Yes,
It's fantastic.
Which is
Great.
wonderful.
OK, on that uplifting note...
Janis, thank you.
Yes, and the very best of luck.
Thank you.